Hello friends, I welcome you all to my channel EVSedu. Today I am going to discuss about human-environmental relationships, or we can say human-environmental interactions, or interaction between humans and their environment. Dear friends, we all know that environment is sum of surroundings, and this environment includes both living and non-living components, that is biotic and abiotic components. And every time this environment remains functional by interaction between biotic and abiotic components, and which makes this environment healthy, lively, and makes influence to each other. Dear friends, in this topic I am going to discuss the broad concept about the human environmental relationships, in which we will come to know about what is the human social system which interact with the environment, and what are the important characteristics of human social systems, and ecosystem services which are being impacted or influenced by the humans or inter-environment get influenced. And lastly, in this topic we will discuss about the important approaches which are applicable in this topic, that is the different approaches which are related with the human environmental relationships. So dear friends, let us begin. Simple thought of interactions of human beings with their environment and for causes. First of all, we know that we remain always in contact with the environment in terms of different types of relationships and different types of interactions. For example, interactions of human beings with the social world and nature, and here nature means environment for development. And all times human beings with their social world remain in connect and interrelationship with the environment, or we can say nature. And all these human interactions with the nature is for the development. We can say that the act or instance of growth or advancement. There is a reasons why human beings with their social world remain interacting with the nature for the sake of development. There are some major reasons why human beings are interact with the nature for the development, in addition to those interactions which are mutually benefited with the environment. When we are talking about the act or instance of growth and advancement, it means that human beings as a social element in the environment remains always in a relationship with environment for their comforts and luxuries, for their economic development, for their socio-cultural development, and continual improvement of lifestyles and living standards. Dear friends, we know that this nature provides us a lot of resources. Say for example, air, water, forests, land, so on and so forth. And human being remain always in this race that he modify all these resources and harvest these resources for his own will. And he always tried to harvest maximum among these natural resources for these very benefits, be it a comfort, economic development, social, etc., and so on and so forth. So, when we define this human interaction relationship, it is defined as relationships between human social system and the rest of nature. That means a social system which has been occupied by the humans and the rest of nature. That means in nature, in environment, we have different biotic components. Among them, humans are one of the supreme component, and which remain always in contact with the relation nature, or we can say in the relationship with the nature for active or sometimes in the passive mode. By this definition, we can say that human social systems and ecosystems, which are encompassed within our environment, they form a complex adaptive system. Here I am talking about complex adaptive system. These are the two terms, complex and adaptive. By complex, because ecosystems and human social systems have many parts and many connections between these parts. I repeat, complex, it is a complex adaptive system, complex because the ecosystems which are present in our environment and human social systems, these are the two things, one ecosystem and another human social system. They have the many parts and many connections between these parts in the form of interactions, be it of interaction of the energy or material cycling, or it is any mutually relationship, or it may be some parasitic or one-sided relationship. Then another one, that is adaptive because they have feedback structures that promote survival in constantly changing environment. The sanctity of relationships between man and environment has always been a focal theme of environmental science, and facets of man-environment relationship changed through time with the development of human society and dimensions of environment. By keeping in this view that I have discussed about that complex adaptive system, so such type of relations, and when we are going to study these relationships between man and environment, it remains always a focal theme of the environmental science. And this relationship between man and environment, it remains changed through the time with the development of the human societies and dimensions of the environment. Our dear friends, if we take a look back towards the history, with the history, man has created different relationships with the environment, and by interacting with the environment, he has achieved modernization, he has broadened his vision, he has broadened his dimensions, and so on and so forth. It was about the definition of the man-environment relationship, and in this man-environment relation, there is one major factor that is called a human social system. In order to analyze human environmental interactions, or we can say relationships, it is important to be aware of specific characteristics of human social system. The type of society strongly influences the people's attitude towards environment, their behavior, and therefore their impact on ecosystems. We must know that what kind of society is and what kind of people are present in different human societies, or we can say in different human social systems, and what are their attitudes towards the environment, and what is their behavior and therefore their impact on the very ecosystems. Dear friends, we know that in human social systems there are different walks of people. A group of people is always remain in this context that they only believe they have to harvest different, or they have to exhaust different natural resources for their need. They didn't think about the needs of the future generation, or they never bothered about if they harvest any kind of material in the natural resources and they will regenerate it, they will enhance it, or they will preserve it. No. And certain people they also satisfied their needs, they also meet their goals, they also meet their basic necessities from the natural resources. But on the other hand, they are maintaining it, they are preserving it, they are replenishing it. So it is very necessary to know about or to become aware about the specific characteristics of human social system and what kind of societies in our environment and their behaviors which can impact on their ecosystems. Important characteristics of human social system are population size, social organization, values, technology, wealth, education, knowledge, and many more. All these characteristics have a strong influence on our environment. Say for example, when we talk about the population size, the moment population size increases, they have a different impacts on different ecosystems, or we can say different ecosystem services and goods. On the other hand, when we talk about a population size, say for example, if we take a population size of a small human society, say for example, in 2000, if the human society A, for example, they have a population size of 1,000 individuals, and they have the certain type of lands and other resources during 2012, and when we compare it with after 2 decades or after 1 decade, after 1.5 decade, the population has been tremendously increased, or it has been increased by a slow pace, medium pace, or fastly. But on the other hand, resources are the same. There can arise the different types of competitions within the human population, or there can be competitions between the utilization of the various natural resources. Similarly, when we talk about the social organizations, how many social organizations are there? What are their perspectives towards the environment? What are their goals? Are the social organizations well aware about the environmental education? Are they care about the environmental relation? Are they know about the relations, impacts of relation? Or are they know about the mutual relationships between nature and human system? Similarly, values, technology, wealth, education, so on and so forth. Dear friends, especially when we talk about the values and knowledge, these two things strongly influence the people, or we can say strongly influence the people's view of life, and consequently define the way in which people act towards the environment, or the choice of possible actions is then limited by the available technology. Okay, in this human social system, when we try to analyze the different specific characteristics of human social systems and what are their attitudes towards the different ecosystem services, usually people in the human social systems remain always to modify their environment for their purposes and obtain benefits from ecosystem services or goods. These ecosystem services are essential for human well-being and include, for example, the provisions of resources like water, timber, food, energy, information, land for farming, and many more. Obviously, by using these resources, people affect the environment in a lot of ways. Furthermore, people often recognize existing ecosystems to achieve new ones that seems to be more effective in serving their needs. Like I have example here, certain resources like when we talk about the water. We know that we have different water resources in different shapes. Almost in the present scenario, what are the people's attitude towards to modify this water and utilize these water resources as per their own will or as per their own view. Say for example, tapping up the fast running rivers into the dams for different energy purpose like hydropower, or we can say to create land masses within the water bodies for different purposes, or to make sinks of different lakes and reservoirs for their wastes, which term which can change the tropic status of a water body from oligo, meso-oligo to eutrophic, or at times several water bodies have been in the dystropic or hyper-eutrophic stage. Similarly, when we talk about the timber, which is considered one of the major resources in our forests, and usually this timber is the main cause behind the deforestation, or this timber has been extracted in a significant pace for the industrialization, urbanization, modernization, or different things. People utilize their timber resources as their own, or when we talk about the other resources, food, energy, and so on and so forth, usually people can convert them into one or other, or we can say for example, in the present scenario we are looking in our environment, many fragile forest ecosystems have been converted towards the urbanization, human habitation, or at times industrialization, or sometimes road construction. Many hill stations where there is so many fragile ecosystems are located, and there are the much more diverse trees which are and there are certain optional values of such diversity, and that have been converted into roads, that have been converted into major projects, thereby existing or extinct various species there which are present there. Okay. As the man becomes social, economic, and technological, he broadened his environment by creating his own environment through his design and skill to have provisions for better food, shelter, across access and comfort. As I have already discussed with you people, that people always try to modify their ecosystems as per their own need. It is one of the best reason is there, and when the man becomes social, if we take a look back about the human environmental relationships, say for example, when we give an example, historic man, then he becomes slowly social. He has created his economy, he got so many technologies, then he broadened his environment by creating his own environments, which are presently known as anthropogenic or man-made environments, and he designed those environments as per their own will by using their skills, provisions for better food, shelter, access and comfort, so on and so forth. The man-environmental relationships thus can be perceived and evaluated in a variety of ways and approaches as following. Number 1, determinism approach. Possibilism approach is the number second. Third approach is the economic deterministic approach, and fourth one is ecological approach. Dear friends, let us discuss them one by one. Well, let me first discuss about what is determinism approach. This concept was developed by a German geographer, Friedrich Ratzel, which was further expanded by Ellsworth Huntington. This approach is based on the concept of nature controls human, or we can say earth-made humans. This is also known as environmental determinism. According to this approach, human beings is largely influenced by nature. In fact, natural environment the determinism states that human beings is subordinate to the nature or natural environment, because all aspects of human life, such as physical, say for example, health and their well-being, social, economic, political, ethical and aesthetic, not only dependent upon the natural environment but are dominantly controlled by the physical environment. The second approach is possibilism approach. This possibilism approach, or we can say possibilism term, was coined by French historian Lucien Febvre. Possibilism approach in the study of human-environment relationship is an offshoot of criticism of environmental determinism. The evolution of such human-environment relationship was influenced by advancement of science and technology. Possibilism indicates that the physical environment is passive and human beings is active agent at liberty to choose between the wide ranges of environment activity is according to this approach. The pattern of human activity is the result of the initiative and mobility of human beings operated within the natural framework. The third approach is economic deterministic approach. This approach is based on the basic ideology of man's mastery over environment and continued economic and industrial expansion through the application of modern technologies. Well, the basic thesis of the growth, or we can say influences of schools, that because of economic growth is required for political, social and economic stability, or we can say quality of environment normally assumes lower priority in formulating plans, proposals and in long-term planning because the deterioration of the environment is generally protracted and socially less oblique than deterioration in the economy. It may be pointed out that this extreme concept of economic determinism led to the reciprocal and exploitation of natural resources in the Western developed countries. And lastly, we have one more approach that is known as ecological approach. This ecological approach, and according to this ecological approach, it is the study of man-environmental relationships which is based on the basic principles of ecology, which is the study of mutual interactions between organisms and physical environment. On the other hand, we can say that interacting system which is mutual within an ecology, where there is the interaction between the biotic and abiotic things, or we can say, as I have already discussed, between the organism and physical environment on the one hand, and interactions among the organisms, that means within the biotics on the other hand, is in a given ecosystem. Thus, man is considered as an integral part of the nature or environment. Dear friends, as per this ecological approach is concerned, it is obvious that the relationship between man and environment is two-directional, as the environment affects and influences man, and in turn, man also influences and modifies the environment. This type of mutual interaction and relationship between the man and environment is symbiotic in character. With this, I have completed this topic, man environment interrelationships or interactions. Hope you people have understand very well. Thank you very much for watching this video. Kindly subscribe this YouTube channel EVSedu for different courses like BEVA in the IGNOU and other courses which are run at the UG and PG level in different colleges and universities. Thank you very much.